Hello, and welcome to this week's discussion about Parshat Miketz. Before we begin, I encourage you to take a moment to elevate and sanctify this moment of studying Torah by reading the blessing out loud for studying Torah, and you can find the text in the comments below. I love Torah for so many reasons, and one of them is because quite often we actually get some very practical life advice that has broad implications and applications. And this week we get a master class. It's basically an MBA in how to succeed in business. So for this week, I'm going to talk about the top 10 business lessons from Parshat Miketz. 1. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. I learned this valuable lesson from Jonathan Kessler when I was still in high school, and it proves true here. Joseph doesn't get a shot at becoming the interpreter of dreams for Pharaoh until the cupbearer remembers who he is and recommends him for the job. He could be the best dream interpreter in the world, but until somebody who's in a place of authority who can make that recommendation does so, Joseph is stuck in jail. 2. Dress for the job you want. Joseph, after spending 2 years in jail, is summoned to Pharaoh to interpret the dream. I would imagine Pharaoh would hate to be kept waiting, but Joseph has the wherewithal to know he's got to show up looking the part. So he shaves, he gets a haircut, he puts on some clean clothes, and he shows up making an excellent first impression for Pharaoh. 3, give credit where credit is due. When Pharaoh says, "Hey, are you the one who's going to interpret my dreams?" Joseph says, "I'm just the messenger. God is the one who's actually interpreting the dreams through me." And by the way, he has the wherewithal to then say, "And you, Pharaoh, are somebody who merits getting that kind of information from God." So he's not the one taking credit for being a dream interpreter. He's actually channeling those around him who have helped him succeed, and it bodes well for him. 4, don't just bring problems, offer solutions. When the magicians and sorcerers it was said that they couldn't interpret the dream, it's not because they were tongue-tied and couldn't say anything. It's because they didn't offer a solution. They didn't give Pharaoh anything he didn't already know. And so when Joseph came, he not only did he interpret the dream, but he also had a plan of what to do about it. And so Pharaoh liked that. 5, be best at your job and you will be rewarded. Bill Belichick's famous for saying, "Do your job." We know that people who are not doing well at the job that they were hired to do in that specific moment are usually not given opportunities for other roles. The person who is the intern at the company doesn't get credit for having strategic ideas for the CEO or the C-suite if they're not actually doing the intern filing that they needed to do excellently. So in this moment, Joseph says, here's the interpretation, here's the plan, but he doesn't go further to say, and you should, presumptuously put me in charge of it. He was excellent at interpreting dreams, and by being excellent at that job he was hired for, Pharaoh takes notice and then looks to him for further opportunities. 6, be patient to persevere and succeed. When Pharaoh sees how smart Joseph is, he says, "Hey, let's build a team with more people who are just as smart and who are imbued with the Holy Spirit, the godly spirit that Joseph is as well." And they go and they do a national search. And it turns out that Joseph is not only the only one, but he's the best one to be in that position. So he had the patience to wait until he had the credibility of being the best person in the world to implement it, and Pharaoh hires him to be his number 2. 7, can't lead from behind a desk. Joseph goes out to the country. It says he went all around the land of Egypt. He knew that he couldn't just bark orders from the palace. He needed to get out there and to hear where the people are and talk to them and set his vision and get their buy-in to be prepared for the famine that was coming in 7 years, because they weren't going to just assume that there was going to be a famine. He needed to be out there, understand their concerns, and help them along the journey, and he did so extraordinarily well. 8, decentralized decision-making and responsibility. The next thing that Joseph does is he sets up granaries near all of the cities. That way, they don't have to go back to the capital or back to the palace to bargain for the grain that they need during the famine. They have ownership and responsibility at the local level to make the decisions to do what they need to do when they need to do it without bureaucratic red tape. Number 9, and this credit goes to Pharaoh. Hire the best and smartest people to do the job you need and then get out of their way. When the famine sets in, the people come and they complain to Pharaoh, "We don't have any bread." But Pharaoh, in this moment, has a choice. He can either say, well, Joseph must have failed, and therefore I've got to step in and do something different. But instead he says, Joseph's your guy. He has the plan. I trust him in that plan. Go back to Joseph and do what he says. And in that moment, by standing up for Joseph, Joseph maintains the credibility, the goodwill with the people, and he's actually able to then implement the famine plan that they had prepared for 7 years. Number 10, just do it. Nike comes through again with yet another example of just how powerful action can be. When the famine sets in, Jacob looks around at his sons and sees that they're just talking to each other. They're just staring at each other. And he goes, don't just stand there, go do something about it. Go to Egypt, go get some grain, go figure something out here. And we learn that even though you might not know exactly how it's going to pan out, it's more important to start taking action than to just sit around and plan all day. As Andy Dufresne says in The Shawshank Redemption, you better get busy living or get busy dying. Those are 10 excellent lessons that we can apply in so many aspects of our life. Shabbat Shalom.